All right. Hello, everybody. It has been a long time since I didn't make any video on my YouTube channel, and I want to make one video, which is gonna be pretty long, I think, where as many of you as may have been seen on the forum, um, I've been making some 3D and 2D images of Pirate Galaxy, and so today I wanted to showcase a new technique that I learned by a lead concept artist, which is a friend of mine, and I've been applying to make some personal keyframes of Pirate Galaxy. So these images are not related to any way to Split Screen Studios. It's all my own, and so I want to show you today how to make this kind of image using free tools such as I mean free tools such as Photoshop, but you can use free alternatives to Photoshop, or less expensive like Affinity. And then we'll be using also Blender with Octane, which is free on Blender. It has a free version. And so yeah, um, so that's one of the example of image I made using this technique. Um, so it's gonna be a pretty advanced tutorial, but at the end of the day, you should be able to make maybe some cool images, hopefully. Um, and so yeah, so let's start by the beginning. So let's start by the basics of keyframing. So a keyframe is an image that um, you will be using to storytell something. And so there are six main um, structure on the images. But I mean, today we will be only using one or maybe two, because I mean this is very up to you, because I learned that, and a lot of people learn this, but it's we don't really use that a lot. Um, but basically, on Photoshop, you can view this kind of um, object placement, I like to say. And so basically, what it means is that let's take this one. So this one is the rule of third. So it's the most used one in the industry, in the video game industry. So it means that you'll have your hero object, so your main object, in one of these lines here. So, for example, if you had a ship to showcase, you will be putting this ship right here, or here, or here, or here. And then you will be having your main, um, thing happening on your image here on this rectangle. And so this can be applied to any of this, structure. So this means that for the diagonal one, your main object would be right here, or on all these points. And that's the same thing for the triangles one, where your main object would be right here or here. And that's this pretty much the same thing for the golden one, which is a pretty smaller than the third one. Um, And then the last one is the spiral one, which is, I mean, I really like this one because your main object. So let's say you have a planet that is right here. This means that you will be leading the viewer to your main object. So you can use, for example, asteroids that you'll put all of the way to lead the viewer to your object. So um, these lines are I mean, I said before that I don't really use them, and I don't know a lot of people that use this kind of um, lines when doing keyframes. But I think it's very important to keep in mind that when you are doing an image, you have to have an idea of where you want to put your objects, and that's something that you'll be making when doing sketches of your keyframe, and that is going to be our next task. So I'm going pretty fast, but I'm going to show you afterwards how to do these kind of sketches. So before doing of any keyframe, I really like to make some sketches on Photoshop using black and white colors and simple shapes to have a basic idea of what I want to explain. And so here I've put four different sketches that shows four different object placements um, in in the space. And so um, let's take the first one, which is this one. So this one is basically what I wanted to explain is that we have a destroyed planet, which has a pretty small planet inside. And so this kind of image is what we call framing because we frame our main object, which is a planet, using the destroyed planet. So this is the frame and this is our main object. And so I also put the bit planet just behind it. I mean, I could have just not put the planet, um, but here I really want to show the scale difference between the main objects and the foreground. Um, and so that's one of the structure that we called framing. Framing. The second one is, and that's maybe the one I like the most, is what we call the contrast one. And so basically here, you will have one low contrast item and one high contrast item. So our low contrast item um, is our big planet here, which has not many lights on it. And then we have our high contrast object that will lead our viewer to look at this object first. And then here I just put some um, asteroids to have some perspective on the image. I mean, we could have just removed this and put maybe a ship going this way to this planet or coming from this planet actually, and that's something that we will see afterwards when we'll be doing our keyframe. Okay, so the third one is what we call the negative space. So this kind of image is to represent the feeling of solitude by having an object that is alone, and by having these two big objects here, and also having these kind of asteroids that are leading our eye to just look at this object first. And that's really something that is, I think, pretty interesting is when you look at this image first, the first thing that most people notice is the small planet here, because we lead the viewer to look at this object by the shape of the asteroids. It's kind of an asteroid belt, but not a belt. That is going um, all the way down here, and then we have this kind of two big planets here that also give this small planet a feeling of what I said before of solitude. And that's something that we can use when we want to showcase, dramatic scene or anything like this. And then, for example, if we had to put a spaceship here, we could have put one in here going this way to also lead our viewer to look at this object first. All right. So now let me show you the last one that I decided to show you. Um, this one is what we call the leading lines. So basically, what I try to showcase here is these two planets that are colliding with each other, and we have this kind of destruction um, that gives a lot of asteroids on the scene. But basically, what you have to understand here is that our main object here are the asteroids, and that's because we lead. Um, we have the leading lines that are giving us, um, all the elements to just look at this asteroid. So, for example, here I should have one planet coming from this way, and then we have our main object here, so our asteroids, and then with all these lines, we will have to look at this item first. So using the lightning, and we could also put a ship, coming from this way that will also lead us to this object. And so that's one of the um, pretty interesting also structure to use on the images. And so that's the four images that I wanted to show you. You have also other possible images like adding more perspective using asteroids or using some depth. Like for example, if I want to showcase three objects here, I will have the foreground here, then I will have the mid ground here, and then the background, and that then we'll have a depth on the image, and that's not something I want to showcase today, because this is, I mean, it's pretty hard to work with this kind of images, because you'll have to take a lot of things into consideration when doing your final keyframing on Photoshop, when you made all your 3D renders and anything like this. And so yeah, so now let's jump into the next part of this video. All right, so we saw before the sketches, the lines that we use to showcase some um, hero objects on an image. And so today I want to make an image that is showcasing the mining ships of Pirate Galaxy. And so I went to Calabash to take some pictures of the ships. Um, and so before doing the sketch, which I already did, but I'm going to show you the process of doing sketch because it's not very interesting, but I want to show you some of the tips that I use. So basically, what I chose these ships is because I want to showcase some of these ships. So these ships here and this one that are coming from a planet. So we can say that it's maybe Calabash or any other planet that is on a pirate galaxy. And so I think these two ships really show us, the kind of transport ships that are carrying a lot of, minerals or I don't know, uh, items or anything like this. And this is because this ship is, I mean, pretty big. So we have, this kind of um, um, area on the ship that gives the ship, some space to stock the items that he's carrying. And then with this one, as you can see, he's carrying this kind of, object that we don't know what's inside, but we guess that it's maybe something, maybe not very important or maybe important, but we understand that it's carrying something. And so that's why I choose these ships and not for example, this one, because this one, I mean, we doesn't have the clear, vision that we have on these ships where there are, pretty huge ships. Whereas this one is pretty small, and we could maybe say it's maybe used to transport, people and not or anything you want. Even if it's used as like that in the game, um, because that's the main thing I understand when I look at all these different ships. And so I'm not going to go in depth inside of the ships designs to showcase um, some specific thing because I could have just also show you some real images of um, aircraft or anything like this. But as we are in the sci-fi world, I'm not going to do that. But that's something that I think it's pretty interesting when you think I'm doing an image. And so yeah, let's jump into the next part. All right, so this is the next part of the video where we'll be doing the sketches. And so before showing you the sketch that I decided to make into a keyframe, I just wanted to show you a quick example of what I showed you before with the foreground, midground, background images. So here I did this image where we want to showcase this planet that is between these two big planets that we can maybe imagine being some gas giant planets. And so by leading um, the viewers to this planet, as we can see, we have the freedom to put anything we want on the foreground because we know that the people are going to watch here because we will put less contrast on this part of the image. So everything here is going to have low contrast as well as here. It will have low contrast, and then here it will have high contrast. So that's something we saw earlier with using the contrast images where we have the big planet and the small one here. That's something I really want to show you in a much cleaner image. And so now let's jump into our sketch. So now I want to show you the sketch that I've made for the keyframe we'll be making today. And as you can see, I use the contrast structure of the image that I've showed you before to make this one. And so I've put this big planet on with this small planet, and then I've put also two ships that we can say that they are coming, from this planet, so they are going, this way. Um, and so as you can see also, um, I've put a lot of haze and um, atmosphere, and that's something that I really like to showcase, which is not very realistic, but as we showcase a sci-fi world, we don't really care about that because the main thing here is to add more depth into the image, by blending a little bit, of the ships inside of this atmosphere here, and also a little bit here. Um, and so you can also abuse of that. Um, and then of course we'll be adding more details on this sketch, like on the 3D part. I will be adding a lot of small asteroids, and also I'll be adding the small ships here, I think. Um, and so yeah, so I just want to show you very quickly how to make these sketches, which are very simple to make on Photoshop. And so basically, what I do is that I make a new file. So this one is 5,000 by 3,000, but you can make the size that you want, that you feel comfortable with. And so I just add a background um, layer here. So let's make it maybe a little less black, yeah, like so. And then what I do is that I take my marquee tool, I take my white color, and then I just make a big planet here, like so, like so. Then I just create a new layer, and then I create a smaller one here, which I'm going to make a little bit bigger, and then I add my lightning effect. So I just make um, a new layer that I will put just into my master tool. Use my master tool, um, and then I'll be just adding my highlights. So this way, you know. So if my light is coming from this way, I should have add more a little bit more, of light here, and then remove a little bit. And then I can do the same thing for this one, and then I can add a little bit more light this way. And then to add the clouds and anything you want, um, we'll just add some images on Photoshop. And I will just remove this because I don't want feel. Um, and then maybe what I will do is maybe select this part of the object here. Oops, that's fine. And then I'm going to select my I don't know what it's called. I forgot, but we choose this tool to redefine our um, edges to have something more clear, um, like so, and then will be so. And then now I just put a black and white effect, and then I can just copy and paste it inside of our image, like so. Of course, you can warp your effect, and then I also like to put a curves effect. And yeah, so that's basically how to add a haze um inside of an image. Of course, you can um, put a lot of haze atmosphere and not hesitate to use the warp effect, the distort effect, and anything you want um, that would give your image more depth. Um, so yeah, so I'm also going to show you the the sketch I've used to make this keyframe. And so I'm going to show you that on the next part to show you a technique to make this asteroid belt inside of Photoshop directly. Right. So now let's jump into Blender. Um, So as we saw before on Photoshop, we'll be using Blender for all the 3D parts. And so now I've just launched the casual Blender version. I'm not into the Octane one. And so I just want to show you a quick um, file I made a while ago to create procedural asteroids inside of Blender. And so, as I'm not a Blender expert, I'm not going to show you how everything works on Blender. And there are a lot of tutorials made by very good artists online that you can find. But I just want to show you because I will put this file on the description if you want to maybe make some test on your own. I just want to show you how I made this asteroid generator. So this kind of asteroids, where you can, add many details you want, and of course, by adding a smooth effect, then smooth everything out if you want to. But yeah, so let's jump into the geometry nodes because this shape is a cube where we put inside um, a lot of cubes, sphere, sorry, like so. As you can see, it's basically sphere that we saturated inside of the cube, and then by adding a lot of subdivision and smooth and Verna texture, we end up having this um, nice asteroid. So yeah, so that is basically what I wanted to show you. I'm not going into the detail of everything, um, but you have to keep in mind that you can choose um, your asteroid shape right into the modifier panel. And so yeah, that's basically what I want to show you. And now we will jump into the Octane Blender for making our small asteroids and our ships. So now we are inside of Blender Octane, and so you can just make sure that you have Octane on Blender by going into your render panel here and just checking if you have Octane on, which means that you're on the good Blender version. Because the Octane version of Blender is separate software. It's not inside of Blender directly. You have to launch it, from another software that you can find on the Otoy websites, which I will put the link in the description. So everything that I shown here is free for use. Um, so let's get into our asteroid render here. So I use this file, which I made a long time ago, to make 3D renders of my asteroids when I have to make, a lot of asteroids renders. I use this file because I have a procedural mechanism on the file that allow me to have, um, custom shapes for the small asteroids, and I've also put some mid asteroids and big asteroids uh, if I had to use them, on um, close view asteroids on my keyframe. So I'm not going into the detail of everything that's happened here, but I'm just going to show you what I used to do my statue space. So basically, what I did here, as you can see, we have a lot of asteroids. Is that I use my volume shape, which is a rectangle here. In this file, in this modifier, as you can see, I have my surface, So if I want to put my asteroids in a disk, I just had to set it to a disk. Then I will get this nice asteroids belt. All right. So before going to the render, the viewport shading option, I just want to make because um we said before, as I said before, we will have a lot of asteroids in the scene, but it will be only small asteroids. So I'm going to go over my rectangle shape, and here I can choose my density. So if the higher the number it is, the less asteroids we'll have. But I also want to have something pretty small. Yeah, like that. And so if I choose this shape, let's just see what happened. Yeah, nothing happened. I want to not have pretty big asteroids. I want, yeah, some noise. Let's just see. We have some seeds. Um, so yeah, the goal here is to just have a lot of small asteroids that we will afterwards just render. So I use the small asteroids. Of course, I could choose um, the large debris. So that's some 3D shapes I've put into the file. Um, I don't know, we could maybe put some mid asteroids. Of course, it might make Blender crash because it will load, yeah, a ton of um, different asteroids. Um, but yeah, I'm just going to set it to small asteroids if I do find them, small asteroids. And now let's just put myself in front of my asteroids, and I'm going to align my camera with my view. And so here, as you can see, I've set it to 7,000, but we are going to set it to make it a square because we are rendering a square basically. And I also want to make my camera a little bit on the left, on the right here. So what I'm going to do is, because I have my mouse um, button is actually broken, so I have to move like this. Let's do something like that. Yeah. Um, so as you can see, we have a lot of small asteroids here. And just to make sure that my camera sees everything, I'm going to set the end path to maybe not that much, but 10,000. It will be enough. And so now we have, a bunch of small asteroids. I could also just add some more void, so more space between these um, asteroids. And yeah, so now let's get into our viewport shading. So this is where we will be viewing the final result with the Octane render engine. As you can see here, it's waiting for the image to render. So because it's actually using the Octane servers to just request, the license. And so as we can see here, we already have some lightning going on the asteroids because I don't want to have much detailed asteroids. I just want to have, a lot of small ones. And so if you go into here, as you can see, I've set already a world which is um, featuring this lightning here, as we can see. And so if I go into my shader editor, as you can see here, it's my world editor material that I use. Oh wait, it's that one, sorry. It's this one that I use. So I do like to use the planetary environment because this is the one that is the more, I would say, maybe appropriate for the type of work we are doing. But of course, we could maybe add, um, let me see, I could add, daylight environment here, which is going to take place like this. And because I set my um, render to alpha channel, I'm just going to remove it so this way you can see what's going on. So this is the daylight environment, and we can choose where the color is, where the lightning, sorry, is coming from. But we can also choose to have a planetary environment, which, as we can see, if I put it to 0, so basically here we are on a planet where we have our sun going right here, because I set it to this way. But I could just move it, from the other way, and then we will find our sun in the other way. But because this scene is happening, in space, we have to add some altitude um, for our asteroids. So if I just set it to, let's say, 1000, as you can see, the world is starting to move, the planet is starting to move. So if I set it to 5000, maybe, I don't know. So now we are on the planet atmosphere. We have our sun right here. And I don't know, I just going to put it to maybe, I don't know, something like that. Or maybe even more. Yeah, yeah, this way. Um and I think I'm going to put that into black color because we have the light, because our lighting on our scene is coming from this side. So I have to make it a little bit more, yeah, this way. And I think I'm about to make it a little bit bigger and maybe having less, because we do have a lot of asteroids now. Less, yeah, something like that. Yeah, like that. It's looking pretty nice. And I mean, we're not going into very in detail, but here what we are using is basically the lightning power. So if I say to 5, we'll have more light coming from this side. I'll just say to 2, and 2 looks pretty good. Look, the 2 looks pretty good. And I also have my material, um, so the texture of my asteroids. And basically, we are also using the Octane material nodes here, because Octane have its own nodes for texturing. And so I'm not going into detail on that, but basically what I'm looking at is this looks good. This one is, don't really care about that one. Yeah, good, good. Let me just put that. Choose the metallic look. I think that's way too much. This is my bump, so it had in pretty much small detail on my asteroids. And my texture displacement here. Um, I have my normal map also, but I'm not really satisfied with this blue color coming up from the way down. So I'm just going to look at how it looks. Say to, yeah, right. Let's set it to white. Because if I even if I set it to black, it will add some lightning because basically you have the reflection from this part. I could also maybe, yeah, this way it looks pretty nice. And so now, as we can see, we have some asteroids that we can render on Blender using Octane. And so I just want to show you a quick example. Also, I've talked to you before about when I use displacement maps on um, asteroids. And so if I go to my mid asteroids, I should be able to show you an example of what I mean. Let me just check because yeah, I need to make it. Yeah. So these are my other asteroids that I use for my other keyframe I've showed you. So as you can see now, we have much more detailed um, asteroids, and these asteroids have maybe have a lot of verticals, so they are not very optimized. But the thing is that in the modifiers panel, I use a lot of displacement maps, which I put inside of Blender. And so you can find displacement maps all over the net. It's basically black and white texture maps that you can just put inside of Blender. And then you can just, if I just remove this one also maybe. Um, yeah, this is my base displacement that I can, just choose. And then I have my other one. Then I added a third one to add even more details. And I did that for every asteroids to add much more detailed on the final render. Because, I mean, when some asteroids are very far away, I don't really care about the uh, quality of the displacement, but when they are close, they need to be very, very good. And this one wasn't the final one. Um, I decided I decided to choose. So now let me jump back into my um, stretch space. Yeah, that one. And so I'm just going to make it maybe, yeah, this way. Just switch change anything, but I feel like I feel like yeah, I'm going to do that. And then maybe I'm going to say 10, maybe not 10, maybe 5. And then I'm going to go on my alpha channel just to have a quick look on how the asteroids are looking at. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. And so now we just have to make a quick render image to have our final um, image. And so it might take some time regarding your PC. Um, do not forget to put inside of your um, the CUDA version to make sure to use your GPU instead of your CPU. So make sure to have this selected when rendering with using Octane or Cycles or even Eevee if you had to work with these two engines as well. So for the next part, we'll be viewing how to export our ships inside of Blender using Octane. And so, yeah, if we wanted to have this rusty effect, we could do that by applying a normal map, or we can also add another texture on top, add more uh, dirty things on the ship. Um, so now let's put our lights on the ship. So like before, I'm going to go over my world panel here. I'm going to set it to a big number. And I'm going to put this like that. Just want to have a clear view on what's happening. Yeah. We will also have to add light here because we doesn't see anything happening here. So I'm going to add a light. I'm going to add a area light. And I'm going to set um to try it to this point. And then let me just move it this way. Yep, just move it this way. It looks pretty weird because yeah, I have to set this um this light to something less power, so maybe 25, and then I have to add more power here, like maybe 5 also. Maybe not that much. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like how it looks. Yeah, like that. I do prefer how it looks. And then let's just set to. I don't know if it really changed something. I feel like with 10 and then the opacity to like 5. And then if we really want to get something more precise, we could also just fill the environment and just add a new light. So maybe we'll add a spotlight here because it's coming from a sun. Let's just maybe put so it's coming from behind a little bit. Then I have to put this um, power of the light up or even more. I don't know. Yeah, that's maybe too much. Or we can just I don't know if we can do it. I know in this kind of light we can normalize. Um, if I do find it, of course. Like that. And then let's go back to our spotlights. Um, so let's maybe put it like so. And because it's a low poly model, we don't have many much detail here. So I don't really know if I do prefer with that or I don't know. Let me just check it up. Yeah, I think I do prefer with the light on. Maybe we will make it undertone. I like that. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And then if I just remove that, right. There's one thing I don't really like is the fact that I will have to remove that disliking afterwards on Photoshop because it's not supposed. I have to make it bigger and even stronger if I just wanted to make some tests. Um, I don't really know if yeah. I think the spot is way better here. And let's add something like that. And we need to have something more powerful. Right this way. And I think that now we start to have something that looks pretty cool. Um, yeah, like like that. I think we have something that looks pretty cool. And then of course we just have to go um, and I have to put um all my render settings back, but if we just go over the new one, just into my alpha channel here. Yeah, that was my fear actually, that we have something that looks too powerful, which is going to hate all the lightning. That's why we are going to keep it with the environment mode. I think it's the best. Let's just remove that and let's just move the world a little bit this way. Let's put it this way, and then just put this one a little bit less powerful. Yeah, and then we'll add all the other details inside of Photoshop, so the highlights and everything like that. And so that's how I make a ship render on Blender. So it's this one is a pretty easy one. I just struggled to find the correct lighting, and then I'd be able to do that for um, any other um, ship. Ooh, this one is yeah. Then I can do that for any other ship here, where I just have to add the texture. It's this one, I think. I think it's this one. Yeah. And so I do the same thing for the other ships that are in the scene where I just have to, um, adjust maybe the lighting a little bit, but I just remove the speaker down so it doesn't have this weird reflection here. And then that's how I do. And so for the next step, we'll be going into Photoshop to do all the matte painting. And all right, so now I want to show you the website I use to take my textures for my planets and clouds and everything like this. So I, first of all, I use my own photograph that I do, outside. But I do use a lot of online websites. So the first one I use for my planets is the high res from University of Arizona, which is pictures of places on Earth, but in a very high quality. And so, for example, if I had to take, I don't know, like this one, and we go over the RGB color, which is the one I use. If I just open it, as you can see, we have a pretty high texture. Um, and so if we just go over here, you can just download it. So it's a GP2 file, and to open a GP2 file, which Photoshop doesn't support anymore since I think 3 years now, you can use GIMP to open them, which is free. And to just import them into GIMP and just import them into a PNG or a JPEG file, or I don't know, a HCR file, or a TIFF file, which because they are pretty high quality um, pictures. And so this one, as you can see, is 20,000 pixels in height. So yeah, it's a pretty large file. The second website I use is Flick, which is a free website where you can find some high quality pictures from photographers. Um, and so you can just download them and you know use them into your keyframe. Just be careful if it's for commercial keyframe because these pictures has a license. So just be careful about that. So if it's just for your own personal work, you can use them, but yeah, be careful for or commercial stuff. And so the last website I use is by far my favorite website that I've been using for years now. Is a website where you can find a lot of textures, high quality texture for free. So basically, it's 3D. I mean, it's a 2D artist that made this website, and he make a lot of tutorials online on, I mean, on Photoshop and even on After Effects. And so you have a lot of different textures here. So we have just sky texture also. So it's a very useful website. So these are the three main websites I use to do my keyframe. So here we are in the final part where I'm doing the Photoshop matte painting. And so I just want to do a quick overview voice over what I'm doing. So first step is I like to place my planets in my environment um in different colors. This way I can fully understand which object is important and which is less important. And so after doing all that, I just import my ships. And as you may see, I have a gray layers, and this is because I exported my depth um, on Blender. This way I can just make it blend into my haze and my fog directly on Photoshop, and it will be automatic. And this way it's easier for me to not do everything myself. And here I start to import my planet textures. So I'm just merging some texture together to have a nice result. And I like to do that on a different file um, because I will use an effect which is called uh, spherize. Um, and this effect allow me to put this texture inside a sphere as a sphere. And this way I just import it into my keyframe, and I just do some warp effects to have a better um, perspective in my planet. And then what I do is I like to add um, a pretty dark layer to my um, non-illuminated area of my planet. And I like to do that because it allows me to control my shadows um, at the end of the color correction. And then I do the same thing for my other planets where I just merge some textures together. So yeah, this is really up to you which texture you want to use. And of course you can merge different textures from different colors. You can just put, a hue over it just to make it blend into your global um, keyframe. And yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say about that. There's nothing more I can say. Um, Afterwards, it's just love, s- smoke, haze, work. And so yeah, I'll just let you and see you next time.
cure me of these aching bones. Weaken now, can't you tell? Freezing in a broken shell by myself, spinning into vertigo, driving when my eyes are closed. Was it dead? Was I dreaming? I stopped breathing when all really needed was this feeling. No more lies if I disappear. Just one last line on the chandelier. If I begged you and I pleaded, I don't mean it. Nobody can hear the words that I'm screaming. No more lies if I disappear. Just one last line on the chandelier. Asleep, don't you see? Everything's so incomplete, bittersweet. Just tell me how to break this code. Tell me, see the bruises glow. Window seat, out beneath, frozen but I feel the heat, burning deep. Somebody tell me where the angels go and save me from the dead. Disappear.